Thanks a lot for giving up your Friday night to come along today. It's good to see so many people here. Just a quick intro from me. So I came across the 33 Shake guys on a podcast probably about 18 months ago. And yeah, I just listened to what Warren had to say, and I was just really impressed about, and it made me think about nutrition in a slightly different way. So rather than the things that, if you forgive the pun, like shove down your throat, the messages, it was just a different way of thinking about how you can fuel yourself through racing and also your life as well. So I've been really excited about getting these guys up to come and talk to you. So you didn't come here to listen to me, so I'm just going to hand straight over to Warren and let him take you through this evening.
Thank you very much.
It's okay for him to ask as many questions as they want along the way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. The question's good, and we're going to dive in. We have a Q&A at the end, but feel free to leap in along the way. So there's very easygoing format. Really, thanks to Mark for reaching out the invite, because a big part of what we do at 33 Shake is in sharing information. Whether you're using our products or not, that's not really the point. The point is giving you tools for your mindset and your life and your nutrition to easily make choices that can upgrade performance, health and everything else, because really they're the same thing. So just a little bit about me. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 33 Shake, along with Erica, who's the other CEO and co-founder over there. You've also got Filippo here, who's been with us since absolutely day one when we started making products in the kitchen at home. He's also our media manager and our operations manager, so you've pretty much got about a third of the company here right now. I'm an amateur endurance athlete. Ultra marathons are primarily my thing. Done 35 of those over the years, from Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc and Marathon des Sables, several others. That got me into Ironman, because you start hanging out with people who do things and go a long way, and that then got me into cycling, and that's kind of been my last decade. Now, before that, I was a journalist, and I worked for, I was freelance, worked for all the national papers, a lot of the Sundays, and I wrote a lot about sport and human performance. And that opens a door or two. So just on the cycling side, that's Mark Cavendish having a bit of a laugh before he made me look really stupid going downhill on the Isle of Man. Phil Hines, the Olympic GB sprinter. That's not as dodgy as it looks. He's teaching me how to sprint on a deserted back lane in Manchester. Chris Hoy at the bottom. We're in the middle of what looks like a fascinating discussion for both of us. You don't get to choose who takes the pictures. That was sprinting at the velodrome, and a very interesting moment with Mark Beaumont. He holds the record for cycling around the world, but that's just a little snapshot. Being introduced to athletes like that also brings exposure to their coaches, to their teams. As a journalist, people want to talk to you, and it also brings exposure to nutritionists and product. And a lot of companies gave me a lot of product. I suffered a lot of problems with my own, with energy levels, immune function and other things. And I started thinking, is there a better way to do this? That's really where the genesis for 33 Shake comes along. So like I said, we're looking to remove confusion around cycling and performance nutrition. Just to show hands, are you guys, is it all triathlon in here? Is it cycling in here? Is it running, or are you a bit of everything? Who's for cycling?
Yeah, I guess we're a bit, yeah, triathlon.
Okay, so you'd be across all sports, right? Okay. Put you guys in control of your nutrition, make you faster, happier and healthier, and a bit of Q&A. And I thought I'd start out with an early one. I want you to do a bit of a memory exercise. Think of the best race you ever had. What's the best race you can remember? Can you remember how you felt in your best race? Anyone thinking that? I'm thinking back to, it was UTMB 2000 and probably 12 it was, and the last 10k, where I'd paced the longest race in my life perfectly, probably by accident, but I had started bloody slow. And I pounded in that last 10k, feeling like, I don't think it looked very heroic, but I felt like I was running at my fastest. Nothing, it was one of those flow moments. Put your hands up, anyone ever had one like that? What race was yours?
Obviously the coaches at the club doing a really good job.
10 and 100.
Oh, nice.
That was the perfect race, and again, accidental, just didn't work. Yeah, really good feeling.
Nice. Was there another one here as well?
Yeah, Ironman Wales last year.
Nice.
I paced it, well, yeah, it was part of the plan to pace it like I did, but I finished strong, but equally, when I crossed the line I couldn't give it any more, so it was very satisfying.
That's nice.
Yeah, I knew that there was nothing else I could give.
That's so rare over a long
Yeah,
distance, isn't it?
It was amazing.
Well done. Okay, so let's flip the coin on its head. Bad days. I'm going to go UTMB 2009. Snapped me into like a twig. Went out far too hard. Nutrition was wrong. Weather was wrong. I hated everything and everyone. I was swearing blind that they were moving checkpoints and they were getting further away than it said. I hated the course director. How could anyone make anybody run through this? I hated the weather. Why would you hold it at this time of year, you bastards? It's raining. And then, of course, people are overtaking me. My legs are in bits. I hadn't accounted for the descent, and forget it. I basically pretty much fell into the halfway checkpoint at Courmayeur and said, please take my wristband off. I'm out of here. Horrible, horrible day. Anyone ever had one like that? Two hands up, tell us about it.
So this was a half distance last year over in Cotswolds. I've done the race before, so I know the course. But I never had much of a nutrition plan, so it was like one of the hottest days of the year. The bike just tore me apart. It's not much longer than spinning, it tore me apart. And I came into T2 and I literally curled into the beach position, transition to. I thought, no, I can't do this. And then bloody Hannah here said, no, you have to go. I think I was in tears.
Yeah, but no, I didn't.
I don't regret anything. I got through it eventually, but yeah, it just tore me to pieces, just the heat, 'cause I hadn't had proper nutrition.
Yeah, great example. So anyone else? Anyone want to throw in another horror story for us to join the party?
I had a race years ago where I actually stayed overnight so close to the start line that I just got up and did the race without having any breakfast whatsoever. And I actually got part of the end of the bike course was part of the run course, and people were running faster than I was cycling. They were really past me, just like, you know. And every single house I went past, all I could do was smell bacon butty. All I could do was just get off the bike and have a bacon butty. And it was horrendous. It was.
That's brilliant. So
I finished the race by the way.
did you get your bacon butty?
I think so, yeah, I can't remember. I wasn't really bothered at the end. I was so happy that I felt so bad that then did carry on and finish the race that I think I'd forgotten about it.
Well done.
Probably had a bacon butty.
Mark's one of our top coaches.
And you flat bacon butties after
That's what you need in your corner, isn't it? But the thing there is, clearly in sport, life, but particularly in endurance sport, the ability for the pendulum to swing from best moment of my life to I want to curl up and die is very high. And particularly over distance, the further you go, the harder it gets. The aim of what we're going to do tonight is give you far more of those good days and far more of those good moments and put you in far more control of delivering good much more regularly. It shouldn't actually be a game of chance. It's not all about nutrition, but as we'll see, a lot of it comes from a nutritional foundation, and there's simple things you can do to really swing the pendulum in your favour for more good. But before that, let's go back to 1987. Frankie's telling us to relax. Some amazing people called Lepin in New Zealand invent a thing called the energy gel. That's the first one. As you can see by the variety of sports on the packet, not to mention the clothes, they thought it might be useful for basketball and other things, but we can also see that cyclists and runners were a key market. So that's 1987, that is the birth of the energy gel. This, fascinating if you're a nutrition geek, is the first evidence of the energy gel as we know it today. 1997, this is a patent for a goo energy gel. Right, you will see this food gel is prepared using maltodextrin, fructose and water. So there it is, that's your gel formula. Maltodextrin plus fructose plus water plus a sprinkling of a couple of other preservatives. 1997. There is a point to this. Because let's take cycling as our example. This is what cycling looked like at that time. And I think can all agree, give it another 20 years, cycling doesn't look anything like that anymore. Let's look at what's been invented. Take a look at his feet. He has cable tie shoes and cleats. We're talking leather shoes and straps. Amazingly, in that 20-year period, it appears that sunglasses, gloves, helmets and team radios have all been invented. This poor bloke didn't get a thing, didn't even get gloves, and he's barely got handlebars there. Doesn't have a water bottle. We've got carbon fibre, we've got wind tunnels, we've got GPS, we've got power meters, you name it, we've got skin suits. Where do you want to begin? A lot has happened in that intervening 20-year period since the energy gel as we know it was invented. So, what is happening in the world of nutrition, sticking with cycling? These are some current energy gel products. And these were taken off the internet 2 days ago. OTE, that's maltodextrin and fructose. High 5, that is maltodextrin, water and glucose, so they're actually pretty much closer to the 1987 formula. Things I've highlighted in orange, that's sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate, there's some additives we may meet later. Just in case you thought I was picking on 2 random case studies or the only ones that did it, here's a Torque energy gel, maltodextrin and fructose, and below a Cis energy gel, water and maltodextrin. I think you can possibly see a pattern coming along here. I won't bother giving you another 10 of these because it just repeats over and over again. So, if the energy gel hasn't changed in 20 years, while the rest of the sporting world has taken some pretty quantum leaps, has there been any innovation in the mainstream sports nutrition for runners, cyclists, triathletes? Let's go back to an old product. Anyone ever try High Five's energy drink?
Yeah.
We've all met it, old staple, like been around forever, used to find it in millets, right? For a fiver underneath some old gloves. There's a reason for it. Maltodextrin and fructose, they're the only carbohydrate sources in there. It's 93 grams of carbs per 100. That is 93% maltodextrin and fructose powder. So just if you wanted to start a sports nutrition brand, get some maltodextrin powder, some fructose powder, sell them on their own, that's an energy drink. Add a pinch of salt, that's an electrolyte drink. Add a little bit of water, that's a gel. Add a little bit more water, that's a hydrogel or an isotonic gel. Add a lot of water, that's a sports drink. That's like 7 products off 2 things. But that's the old product. We're talking about innovation. We know that's an old product, it's an old staple, it's been around forever and everyone's seen it. Did anyone see the fuss around Sis's Science in Sports Beta Fuel this year? This was apparently the stuff, actually last summer, that took Chris Froome and Team Sky to the Giro d'Italia win. There it is, it's in a very technical looking black packet with a big new on it. If you were to look on the website for that, you would struggle very hard to find the ingredients. They are there, they must legally be there, but it's a bit like show and tell, sort of like someone's waving their hand up here while taking your watch out of your pocket down there. They want you to look in one place. When you do find the ingredients, it's maltodextrin and fructose with a little bit of chloride and citrate. 95% maltodextrin and fructose, so 2% more maltodextrin and fructose than the old product. Innovation, apparently. I don't want anyone to think I'm being unfair and picking on Science in Sport here. Morton's drink mix. This was the fuel behind the world's fastest marathon attempt. Do you remember the one that Nike did with some of the Kenyan runners? I think was it at Silverstone or was it somewhere flatter? I can't remember where they did it. They were running behind a car, weren't they? And they took the wind resistance out. Anyway, point is, this was the fuel of that. New technology, innovation, here it is. But if you do find the ingredients, it's maltodextrin and fructose. And it's 99% maltodextrin and fructose. So the innovation in this case is 6% more than that really old product that was a fiver in millets. Does this matter? The world's best athletes are using this stuff, right? So must be good. What is maltodextrin? Well, very quickly it's processed sugar. Comes initially from potatoes, wheat, rice, corn, and it's finally processed down until you get some sweetened sugar out of it. It's nutrient negative. Your body will, you will need to use more nutrients to digest it than you will get from it. So over time, using it will give you fewer nutrients. It's harmful to gut bacteria. Now, with the gut being the second brain, with the connection between food and mood, between the brain and the gut, with the increasing incidence of whether it's irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, or autoimmune things, like, we understand that keeping your gut bacteria healthy is at the heart of being healthy, and being healthy is at the heart of performing well. So your gut bacteria is pretty important. Maltodextrin has been linked to CIDs. That is not the police, although maybe they should get involved. Or maybe it's just me who feels that much about it. Chronic inflammatory diseases, things like arthritis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, autoimmune function problems, things like that. Most commonly found in things like Pringles, beer, ice cream, and shampoo. Now, it is in shampoo. Even I was surprised when I found it in some shampoo the other day. The point is, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, a sports nutritionist, or an elite athlete to see that that CV does not look like the CV of something that's going to make you faster. Fructose, it's a similar drill. It's a processed sugar, directly contributes to heart disease and diabetes. It's associated with dementia. It's known as alcohol without the buzz. When you take fructose, it's present in all fruit and vegetables. Once you process it and remove it from that, it's allowed to get through the body much quicker, hits the liver in the same way as alcohol with some of the same side effects. If you are as geeky and interested in this as I can be, Robert Lustig is the man you want to look up on YouTube. He'll give you full chapter and verse on that. Most commonly found in sodas, frozen junk foods, and obviously high fructose corn syrup. Point about fruit and vegetables. They do contain fructose, but because the fructose is bound within the fibre of the fruit and the vegetable, that slows down the rate at which it is released into the body. Thus, you can eat as much fruit and vegetables as you like with no problems at all, no matter how high they are in fructose. It's only once that fructose is processed out, and the more it gets processed out, i.e. orange juice, not brilliant, but better than Coke, high fructose corn syrup, really, really bad. But again, sorry, just to finish on that one, we're not looking at the CV of a high performance, health improving food. Potassium sorbate is an additive that's very common in energy gel and a number of other things. It's found in a lot of those products and a lot of other off-the-shelf sports nutrition products you'll find. It's a chemical preservative. It's known as a gut irritant, so why you would put that in something when people are already going to potentially suffer stomach trouble, I don't know. Long-term use is linked to white blood cell damage. We get in the picture. These are not great things to be eating. Sodium benzoate is a mold inhibitor. It starves your cells of oxygen, so kind of suffocates you from the inside, really, which is probably why it's linked to cancer, Parkinson's, and accelerated aging. Again, a very common additive in sports drinks, in energy gels, and in powders. Very common in junk food, but as I was saying with Mark earlier, junk food's fine. Junk food is honest. Like, no one eats it thinking it's going to be good for them. It might be enjoyable, and there's no harm in eating it. But when you're giving a product to an audience like we are, who want performance and ask for health, it doesn't make any sense to use these things. Last one, Acesulfame K, man-made sweetener. You'll find this on a lot of labels it's most commonly found in a lot of energy bars and protein bars. It's a man-made sweetener. The safety tests that prove it's safe for human consumption, the ones that I believe they use in America, have also been shown to be inadequate to establish a lack of potential carcinogenicity. Always a mouthful, that one. The point being, the test that proves it's okay is not actually, say, up to scratch to prove that it won't have a link to cancer. This is not to necessarily say it does, but that's a bloody big question mark to have over something you're eating as an athlete, right?
Oh.
You've taken it a lot. I didn't want you to think this was going to turn into some lecture. Let's just have a breather for a minute. Aren't they sweet?
I'm a bit stunned by what we've
There's been a lot going on there, but you know, the point is, even though professional athletes are using these things, and we can go through this in the Q&A, and we can come to this later as well, and even though some of the world's leading nutritionists on these world's leading teams are happy for their athletes to use these things, when you look at what's in them, there's nothing in there that says you should. If you could find another way, or at least even if you found that those products work for you and you're happy with them, because this is another thing that we can talk about with Mark earlier, is that it doesn't matter what I say, what Mark says, what your best mate says, what an elite athlete says, what a nutritionist says, or even what a scientific report says, and we'll meet them later. It matters how you feel. We're all an experiment of one. So if you've got a nutrition strategy and you're like, I love this, these products work for me, I'm aware of what's in them and I am happy to put that in my body, I like it, it works, it's for race day, that's all that matters. You having your best possible race day experience and your best training experience, but also being able to build short-term performance and long-term health. If you're in that space, it doesn't matter how you get there. But what you've just seen with those ingredients, a bit like the have a look at this, don't have a look at that. I say, honestly, if you go onto Morton's site or Science and Sports, I challenge you to see if you can find the ingredients in under 2 minutes. Once you've found the product, they're quite well tucked away. As long as you know that, it's fine. So the kittens are pretty happy with that. Anyone got any questions at this point? Shall we get on with some more kittens?
I just ask you a quick question then. So how many people, so all these kind of like products and stuff like that, how many people actually use these in their races?
Oh
Pretty
yeah.
much everyone.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I was exactly the same. So I just realised this is not turned on.
Is that mostly in races, not so much in training, I wouldn't say. Not for me anyway, but mostly races.
Right, okay. That's interesting then, because also, people get told by coaches sometimes that you should practice what you're going to do on race day. So that's interesting if you were practicing. So you went out for a cycle around on a Sunday morning.
long rides, long sessions I would use.
You would use it, yeah.
But not on I wouldn't say regularly, sort of midweek training kind of things.
Yeah, I see people having electrolyte drinks when they're in the pool and stuff like that. So it might be, just an hour session or something, and they're drinking some kind of electrolyte drink.
I don't personally, but
Yeah, I think the usage question is an interesting one, because on the one hand, you need to know, do you like it, does it work for you, so you do need to trial it, but also the elite athlete use is used as quite a big lever to sell these products, but they use it very sparingly if at all. So a sports nutrition company would like you to think that their professional Grand Tour riders are using this product for the entire race. Now the truth is, they're getting fed very well by chefs in the morning, they're getting fed very well by chefs in the evening, and in between they're being given musettes on the calmer bits of the course, which contain sandwiches and homemade rice cakes. So the product is still only 30 to 40% of their on-bike nutrition. And even that time when Chris Hoy and I were, obviously, as you can see from that picture, where we're having such a great laugh, and it's made me such good mates, I've known him for a whole day. At the end of that day, which I'm sure he remembers just as clearly as I do, good old Chris, it was put on by a major nutrition company, the event. I was there as a journalist, and at the end of the event, someone came and said, Chris, here's your recovery nutrition. Now bear in mind, the journalists had done, I don't know, we'd been on track for maybe 20 minutes, including 4 laps with Chris Hoy, and he'd been doing this for about 4 hours with everybody. And he came up and said, thank you very much, and he gave the nutrition pack to his manager, and he had a chicken sandwich. Now I don't know if he then went home and scoffed that stuff. He may well have done, but in that instance, food was his first go-to, not the other stuff.
Warren, I'm not sure if it's your nutritional strategy, but that table's bowing quite a lot.
Yeah,
I think it's just the strength of that table, and it's making me a little bit nervous.
Shall I not sit on it quite as much?
I think the other health thing that some of us have heard, sort of, I don't know whether I have any facts behind it, is what it does to your teeth.
That's absolutely true.
Interesting to your comments on.
I don't have the stats handy, but there was a big news story last summer. Something like at least 40% of Olympic athletes in aerobic sports are suffering with dental issues that impact their performance, as in the pain, or it impacts their sleep. and the dental issues are linked to the high carb, high sugar, and your teeth are a bit stronger than your internals. So, good point.
I did read something about that if you, because everybody has these drinks and then clean the teeth afterwards to try and get rid of the sugar, but I heard that was worse. Does anybody else heard that?
Does it weaken
It
your
is
enamel if you have, so if you have sugar on there, if you eat something, the enamel is weaker, so you brush your teeth, you just brush the enamel straight off.
Right, okay. Yes, that
Which
doesn't
will
sound
wait
like a
half
good
an
thing
hour, I
anyway.
think. My friend is a dentist.
Well, David Lattigal-Pooley eats cheese before he has gels.
No,
Before
cheese
race.
is really good.
Cheese.
It's like
To coat the teeth.
Yeah, coat the
Cheese,
teeth
yeah.
with cheese.
Well, this, you know, it sounds ridiculous, but this makes sense.
Oh, does it? I've just started coaching David, so I'll ask him.
Ask him. Honestly, he's worth by it. Ask him.
Well, he can probably cut his cheese bill quite substantially by maybe not eating the thing that he thinks is destroying his teeth in the first place. It's a bit like the sort of bodybuilder thing where it's not uncommon for them to be forcing down protein shakes over the sink in case they vomit.
Oh, God.
Probably something going on there. Anyway, why do pros use this stuff then? We've touched on that a little bit. If it is not that great, we say, why are they using it? Risk aversion. As humans, we are hardwired to avoid loss rather than seek gain, even though we all think it was the other way around, but it's repeatedly been proven that we would far rather not lose something than win something big. Therefore, if you are a professional athlete, this changing your nutrition might improve you by 5%. But what if it doesn't work? Like, oops, wrong way. They've got short careers. If you've been lucky enough as a marathon runner, a heptathlete, a track athlete, a triathlete, anything, a pro cyclist, if you've been lucky enough and talented enough to get through to that pinnacle, to actually have a career as an elite athlete, the numbers, the pyramid of numbers that didn't make it, injury, didn't get on with the selector, something went wrong, broke a leg at the wrong time, were just a fraction off on the day. There's one person in their age group who just happens to be a biological freak. Whatever it is, like, you've got a short career. Do you really want to go and rebuild your nutrition plan from the ground up, even if there is this huge gain? So within professional sport, and we've learned this ourselves, there is a surprising amount of risk aversion. You'd imagine they're all out for every last game. It takes a long time for those to filter through. Still getting that the wrong way. Commercial deals, nothing wrong with that. Business is business, sport needs money. But who's got the most money to be a nutrition partner? Tends to be the more established companies. The more established companies have got the budgets, they've also got a lot of science behind them, we'll come to that in due course. Can brands who are doing other things, they're growing like us, can they come in and write the same size check? It's very unlikely. And then on top of that, even if they could, well, by the way, these products are a bit different. Are the riders going to go for it? Will it fit with the science? It takes a very long time for that to filter to the top. Ironically, the changes and the benefits in performance, nutrition and health available now to all of us, that charge is going to be led by guys like you and us in this room tonight, because we can go out and find it. We can be an experimental one. You can go and try something different tomorrow. You can try it for a month. Now, if it doesn't work, move on to the next thing, but you can constantly be shifting it. It's not like your entire world falls apart if you're 2 seconds off on the club ride in a month's time, or whatever it is. Level playing field. Everyone else is using the same stuff. That reinforces the idea it must work. But also, no one has any particular advantage because all the products are basically the same. Doesn't matter which brand you're using. Your energy gel, your powder, your electrolyte, basically they're fractional differences. Therefore, everyone's on the same field. This could be a talk on its own, but mindful that this should not turn into some giant academic lecture on a Friday night when you've been kind enough to give up your free time and come here. I thought we'd keep this bit short. But industry funding does make science 4 times more likely to deliver a result in favour of the funder's product. As the study on this said, systematic bias favours products which are made by the company funding the research. Explanations include the selection of an inappropriate comparator and publication bias. So if you're interested in this at all, the book to read is called Bad Science by a man called Ben Goldacre. It's a compelling book on its own and very well written, very entertaining if you want to dig deeper. But the point is, an inappropriate comparator. An example that you may be aware of, High Five had a campaign not so long ago, a few years back, how cyclists went 20% faster using their product compared to another. Does anyone remember that from some of the magazines? Okay. The point is, when you look at the details of the test, there's no mention of what the control group were using before they went faster. Now, given that all the products are about the same, it's quite surprising that there would be much difference. As we don't know what the comparison group were having, there's a chance the comparison group were just having water, in which case the test proves that calories take you further than no calories. Therefore, have we got anything to stand on there? Publication bias is a simple fact, and this is very, very common. It's completely legal and accepted. Let's say you were a pharmaceutical company, you could do 100 tests on a product and show it didn't work, you could do one that shows it does work, you publish the one that shows it does work, and the 100 that didn't never have to be seen. That gives a fair bit of wriggle room for anyone producing science to back up their products. As I said at the beginning, bringing together health and performance is just about the biggest marginal gain left for anyone looking to upgrade their performance short and long term now. And unlocking that for people is all our mission's about. And one expression of that is the products we make, the brand we're building. Another expression of that is sharing stuff like this, doing evenings like this, the podcast that Mark heard that brought us here tonight, all of that stuff. Because, as I said at the beginning, it's not whether you're buying our stuff or not, it's whether you feel better or not. It's whether you understand what you're looking at, whether it makes sense. If you're being bamboozled by stuff, or you're not sure what it is, or you don't feel good, that's not helping anybody. You know. But on the other hand, if a pro athlete says this is good, the science says it is good, you try it, and it delivers those results for you, happy days, that's all that's required. Does anyone else think like us? You may have seen this bloke. He's quite good on a bike. He's also bought an awful lot of stuff from us over the years. So, you know, the message can get through. You may be familiar with Chrissy Wellington, just the 4 Ironman world titles to her name, and also never actually defeated in an Ironman. Her only finish place was all over first. And she came to join us, which we still have to pinch ourselves about. We're seeing her tomorrow. So if anyone would like to pass on any messages, we'll happily take them along. Unless you're going to, is it the Tri Show or is it the Bike Show?
Yeah, the
Go on, go.
Yeah.
We'll be there, we'll see you there.
Yeah, there is the speaking, you know, the talk at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So, you know, it can be done, but it's notable that any connections we've had with both of these athletes in these examples came after they retired, or right at the back of their careers before they retired. As a hypothesis, that's a point where they're more open to look at the long term and understanding that actually maybe what they're doing hasn't been healthy, maybe there could be a better way. And also, to be fair, the tide has only really begun to turn. When we started doing this, we sounded like nutcases on the fringe, to be honest.
To be fair, also because there are no other brands.
Yeah, there were.
So at the time when they were, you know.
Yeah.
So.
So, anyone familiar with the concept of burning fat as fuel? Okay. I see a few nods, I see a bit of confusion, don't worry, it's simple enough. Your body has 2 fuel tanks. So the idea that you will probably have come across from nutrition companies and nutritionists everywhere is that you only have enough fuel to go for 2 hours. After that you need to top up. That refers to your carbohydrate stores. Your fat stores, however, will power you for literally days, even in a very lean body. The difference is the level at which you predominantly burn carbohydrate or predominantly burn fat. Give or take, conversational pace and below, we're predominantly burning fat. Higher than that, so you're talking 7 plus 8, 9 out of 10 efforts, we're predominantly burning carbohydrate. So if you were to do a 2 hour, 8 out of 10 effort, you're going to run out of juice because that carb tank is going to be empty. You will need to replenish it. Why won't the fat tank kick in at that time? It takes a little more time for it to be metabolized. Therefore, if you actually are going intense and you run out of carbs, you're a bit stuck. It's not the full story though. And this is why this is your ultimate distance fueling upgrade. If you make some simple training and dietary adaptations that don't have to be complex at all, you can raise that threshold below which you are predominantly burning fat. You can take it up to 7.5 out of 10, 8 out of 10. The higher you can take it, the less you ever need to even access that carb store, which means you've got more time between topping it up and running out. You're in more control. You're not going to run out suddenly. The fat is taking up more of the slack. Let's take a hilly run, right? Okay, so on those hills, if you're running them, that's when you're going to be dipping into your carbs because that's going to be a hard, intense effort. But if this is a long distance run, the flats and the downhills, you pretty much do all of that on fat once you've got the adaptation going. Something we talked about over lunch earlier was the idea that if you go fully fat, like take all carbs out of your diet, just eat fat, would that be better for you? The truth is that is likely to be as bad for you as just doing the all carb approach. Anything that's at that end of the extreme, it can be done. Some athletes only go on carbs, some only go on fat. The truth is you're better off somewhere in the middle, but if you can increase that level where you're predominantly burning fat, you're just in the driving seat. You've given yourself a much bigger buffer. This first came to me from this man here, Sébastien Chéniaud. He is a very cool Frenchman. He's a legendary ultramarathon runner. If you're into that stuff, he's won Badwater. He's come second at UTMB. He's a lovely bloke into it. And when I asked him about nutrition, this is one of his things. He said, you must listen to your body, just give it what it needs. That again could be the subject of a talk on its own, but very briefly, there are a lot of signals our bodies are giving us when we're hungry, when we're thirsty. We often can tune out to them. The more you can tune into it, the more you can fuel based on what you need on the day. But fat is going to give you a big buffer against that. So if you want to increase your ability to access that stored body fat for your fuel, fasted training sessions. So if you've ever trained before breakfast, you're already doing that. Go out without any food in. And the easiest way to do it is short runs, short bikes, whatever, before breakfast time, so you haven't eaten anything. All that does is there's not going to be a full set of carbs in there. The body is going to have to use something else to fuel. But don't expect to go out and do a sprint. Just go steady. Yeah? Which comes to the next bit, and it doesn't.
So that one again was something that I tried after listening to your podcast, and the thought that you wake up in the morning, you're going to go for maybe an hour's run, nice and easy, without any fuel whatsoever. I found really scary. But when you try it, you find that you get going, and you just don't miss you don't crave any calories at all, and it's actually a lot easier than you think. But if you're trying it and you're a bit worried about it, just put some nutrition in your back pocket, and then if you do need it, then you've always got it there to use. But I actually found it much easier to go for an hour's run in the morning, didn't miss calories at all, and I found it really easy.
That's a really good point. So having something when you're doing this, because you're out mentally, it can feel a bit like you're out on a limb, so take something with you. But don't plan to use it. Unless you're absolutely stuck, but it's there, right? You'd be amazed. I mean, and it's something we'll come to later. You will find, if you wanted to, if you're doing, say, ultramarathon running is a good one for it because it can be very steady state. You can literally go for hours at times without eating anything. Reducing processed carbs in your diet. We're talking your breads, your white rices, your pasta, your chocolate, your sugars, fruit juices. Doesn't have to be nuts, doesn't have to be an anti-sugar crusade, doesn't have to be crazy, but just a reduction, okay? Coupled with an increase in good fat. We're talking the hipster's favourite, so get your avocados in. Skinny jeans, optional. Flat white. Nuts are another great source. Olive oil is another good one. Coconut oil is another good one. So you could literally stick a spoon of coconut oil in your coffee in the morning. a bit of fat in there, nothing wrong with that. If you put it in the blender, it comes up really creamy.
Sounds gross.
Some people do it with butter. I'm not a fan of that. That's
Yeah, that was is that the bulletproof coffee that I read about, where you can get a really, really strong espresso and then you mix it with butter and just mix it up and then down that. It's supposed to be a way of getting lots of calories and more.
I really feel like you shouldn't mess with your coffee.
No, it sounds gross. It really does sound horrible. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, totally. It is. It's a good source of calories. And what it will do is the fat will, to a degree, ease off the spike of caffeine, and the subsequent crash. It will even out your coffee buzz a bit. From a personal research standpoint, the animal products are questionable in excess, just because they're often not from a good source. Animals are not always very well looked after. There's various antibiotics and other things have gone in. That's why I would go for coconut oil. But hey, there's enough people out there who swear by Kerrygold, so you will certainly up your fat count there. Fatty fish is another good place. Same thing. So anyway, more good fat in the diet. The body gets used to, right, fat is my fuel as opposed to starchy carbs are my fuel. Start slow. Any training session where you have the opportunity, if you can start slow, you're going to give the body an opportunity to start accessing that fat, right? If you start fast, the body goes, shit, we need carbs quick, this is going to be hard. Give it 15-minute build up, then put the pace on. Don't always have time for that, right? We're all busy. But if you do, that will help increase that adaptation. And never, ever, ever, with the caveat that if it works for you, okay, take a gel before a race.
Really? Why?
You've just given your body a big hit of carbs. It's not going to go anywhere near fat for the rest of the race.
It's programming, isn't it?
What about sprint though?
No.
Like if you just in a sprint.
Breakfast?
Yeah.
Breakfast an hour or two before? Huh?
Caffeine gel.
Caffeine gels. Well, look, if it works for you. I mean, the good thing about if you're doing a sprint is that, at least you're not going to suffer the crash until after the race.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah.
That's
So if it works for you, bang on. Although it might be worth looking at the caffeine content, just because when you do bring caffeine gel into the equation and you're drinking coffee as well and you're putting the body under load, there's quite a fine line between caffeine volume and results. But if it's working, yeah.
When you say start slow, like whichever aspect, so like swimming or cycling or running, like is that a certain level? So is that like below 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10?
I'd say 7. We're talking conversational pace and below.
Right.
That's a great question. I hadn't thought to clarify that.
That's okay. That's all.
So, anyone else got any others while we're at it as we're dancing along here?
Is there like an upper limit on how long you should train for fasting?
What, as in how long you should train without anything on board?
Yeah, like before breakfast.
There isn't, no. And there is, I would certainly advise if you are going above 2 hours, take something with you to eat. And a little bit later there's a strategy we can go through whereby you'll be able to really balance that very easily, knowing when you need to add fuel and when you're happy to keep going.
Okay, cool.
So,
But also depends on what you have eaten the day before.
Yeah.
Because, if you eat quite a lot, or in case you had a good dinner, in the morning you're not really hungry.
Yeah, that's
If you had really dinner very early, like 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, you probably are more, no?
yeah. So yeah, the upper limit is where you feel it is. So technically there could be no upper limit because you might go 10 hours and feel great. But we'll come to a way you can balance that.
I find that I can't eat anything before a race at least 2 hours before, but then I feel really hungry on the start line, but I can't eat because I get an upset stomach.
Yeah, yeah.
So then what would you suggest? Like, it's really difficult.
So
to
is that
not start
because,
hungry.
so are you routinely starting your races feeling like you wished you'd eaten something, but you
Yeah, but then I suppose I feel alright when I get going, but yeah, it's just me knowing that I don't want to eat too soon before because then my stomach's going to be bad. But then if you can't take a gel or anything too soon into the race, it's quite difficult.
I know you could certainly take the gel when the race is underway, and the strategy that I was mentioning earlier about allowing you to feel when that is the right time to do that, then by all means go for it. I think it's more because of, primarily it's running is my background, it's the main thing, with a bit of Ironman, and so the number of people I see taking the gel at the start of a long distance event is an unnecessary handicap, but it does sell more gel. I understand why people would promote it. So no harm in having some when you're going and when you feel ready, but maybe also try and training, see if you can find a comfortable window. You know, an hour or 2 hours may be too soon, but 3 might work a treat, and that might not work for every race, but at least you'd have a chance to get something simply.
It's almost like racing fasted.
Yeah, it certainly
I
is.
suppose it's okay then.
Well, I mean, do you feel you're lacking performance because of it, or do you think there could be more available if you'd got more on board?
I suppose I don't necessarily. It's just thinking, should I be hungry when I'm starting this half Ironman or something? It's quite worrying, but.
Yeah, well, I think maybe a part of that is the fact that we can easily become fearful that we haven't eaten enough or something's going wrong. So a lot of it can be here, but it sounds like your races are going okay and you're feeling okay during the race and your fueling is coming together.
It's okay until I get the gels on the run, and then I'm just getting that sort of stomach again. So.
And is that over, what sort of distance races are those?
On a half, usually.
Right, okay, so half iron. Okay. I mean, that would make sense, but then a lot of that, I mean, the stomach trouble is not going to come from not having eaten earlier. The stomach trouble is more likely to come from what's going in at that point. Possibly, quite possibly. I mean, I'd say that it can't be from the thing you didn't eat earlier.
No.
And what was it Sherlock Holmes said? Once you've ruled out all possibilities, the only one remaining must be the truth, no matter how improbable. So he was a fictional character, by the way. Don't take that as gospel. But it may be what's going in as opposed to what's not going in that could be the issue, and I think we might have something that will help with that. Phil Maffetone, who we were chatting about at dinner, he's effectively the godfather of fat burning. He was Mark Allen, the Ironman world champion. He was his coach. He coached a guy called Stu Mithelman, who was an American distance running champion, set the record for running across America. Stu Mithelman has written a book called Slow Burn, which I would recommend if you really like the subject. Stu's a very talkative guy, but he never uses one word when 15 will do. And Phil wrote a book, a big book of endurance training. Is that the one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Which Mark has, so you can borrow it from the library of Mark.
I can't load it on Kindle, but you're a It's highly recommended, by the way, so if anybody wants that afterwards, then just let me know and I'll share which book it is.
A single meal or snack of refined carbohydrate can turn off fat burning, significantly disturb hormones and switch on the genes that cause disease. In the short term there, that's the point why on a long distance race you don't want that gel at the beginning. You want the body to actually go, yeah, I can access some fat as well before you start supplementing with carbs if you decide to. Bonking, here we come to fear, not hanging out in car parks. Here we're actually talking about running out of energy. I'm sure it's common to car parks outside of Oxford as well, and not just taking a swing at Oxford. And checking in, one nutrition strategy for any race, any distance, any time. Tools to get rid of these things. One is to build up your fat adaptation. That's putting you in the driving seat first, and it's very easy to do. Get rid of scheduled nutrition plans. There are a lot of them out there. Take X gels and X grams of carbs this often at this time of day. Blah, blah, blah. And by the way, there's some numbers and things coming up in this PowerPoint. Very happy to share this with you guys all by email, so you don't have to worry if there was something on the slide and you wanted it later.
Have people heard that, by the way? Because that is a really good point. So I was always taught when I was learning about how to kind of do nutrition about you should always have so many grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight per hour, and that's how I fueled a lot of my races. But trying some of this stuff, the checking in stuff that we'll talk about later, I've just learned to kind of not do that, just listen to my body a little bit more. But is that how people tend to race at the moment? Just have a strategy that they have to have so many gels per hour or so many bars per hour, that kind of thing. You're nodding, Alex, is that what you do?
For long distance stuff, yeah.
Because I think it's that when you're racing, you've got so many other things to think about that actually it's very easy to forget about checking in with yourself. And it's it's like if you've got a plan of right what I'm going to do with nutrition, it kind of, because you've got all that adrenaline going, and it's so many things to think about that. Yeah, I think it's that sort of safety net of like, no, I know I've got all the gels I need, and etc. So,
and it's not normally a pleasure to take gels. I know,
No,
I know
no.
yours are going to be different, right? But it's not normally a pleasure. It's something you have to force
It's a bit of
yourself
a
to do.
Yeah.
But with that scheduled approach, and again, the caveat, if it's working for you, ignore what anyone else says. We're all an experiment on one, we're just looking to get the best. But do you find that helpful?
Well,
the schedule, having a nutrition schedule, and knowing that.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't take anything like enough, according to what the books tell me.
It's good stuff.
But I'm open to persuasion.
Well, no, that's a good start.
I'm not saying it's worked for me. I have problems. I don't take enough on, and it's not good to do. So I'm looking for a better way to fuel myself. Definitely.
Well, so hopefully we can get to some of that, because the thing about the nutrition plan, unfortunately, the trend with them is to increase recommendation. A new study shows that we now need 500 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, says a protein company. It's not quite as black and white as that, but when you have saturated a market, and that market is receptive to being told what to do, because it's going to make them faster, telling them to eat one more gel, that's 5% on the bottom line. Business-wise, I get it, it makes sense, and it may make some people faster, but where else, does anyone else eat to a schedule? 8:30 breakfast, 2 eggs, cooked for 3 minutes. Doesn't happen in the rest of our life. Race day, and this is another thing about nutrition, it's not just your race day nutrition, your training nutrition, it's your nutrition as a whole. Everything you eat will make you faster or slower. And so your sports nutrition is your everyday nutrition. Every day is about making you better. So
this is actually something I've thought about as well. That you mentioned there about eating to a schedule. Then I've definitely done that. So you might have a big breakfast, it might be eggs and things like that. You still feel quite full. Comes to 12 o'clock, and then you think I should be eating something. It's lunchtime, and I don't feel the slightest bit hungry. But it's lunchtime. I eat something anyway, and then afterwards I thought to myself, well, I wasn't even hungry. So why did I bother eating anything?
Yeah.
So I've learned to kind of listen a little bit more to my body for that as well.
Fasting's a great one for that. Just a day or two, if anyone's interested in trying it. I mean, total tangent, another subject, but if you have dinner on a Sunday and then don't eat again until breakfast on a Tuesday, it's a very good way to give the body. Don't do this while you're training.
It's making you happy.
You used to fight me to the kitchen.
Not to be done while training or racing, off-season work only, right?
Yeah.
Gives the body a chance to reset, because when the body's digesting, it's working pretty hard, it's not necessarily repairing everything it could be. It's not quite as woo-woo as it sounds, but when you ever do that, let's just say if you ever do that, my God, the amount of time we spend thinking what we're going to cook, what we're going to eat, what's in the cupboard, what's now, where are the biscuits, who's put the tea over there? It's astonishing. So, you're right, we do love to eat to triggers, right? Know your average intervals. I'm not talking about splits here, we're talking about roughly, during an effort, over an hour, how often would you eat something? Everyone's going to be between 45 and 60 minutes, I would guess. Does anyone find themselves outside of that over let's say over a 4-hour effort?
Sorry.
If you were doing let's say a 4-hour ride or run, and you're going to take some nutrition on board during, from what we found, most people are going to eat something every 45 to 60 minutes.
Yeah, probably.
Does that feel like a good number for everybody? Is anyone? Yeah. So,
Well, I work on a basis of a gel every 20 minutes, every 20 to 30 minutes.
Or one effort, maybe.
Guideline that I would read on a normal pack, I guess.
Yeah. That's another one out there. I mean, I think this is an average we're looking at, but you know, so 20 to 30 minutes, every 20 to 30, wherever you are, everyone should have a rough idea where they would be. When you know that, when that moment comes around, and this is where we come back to how long can you go on a run or an effort without taking any fuel on board? When should you take something after breakfast when it's race time? Are you getting enough on board or not? It's just that question. As you reach for the gel, bar, drink, whatever, take a beat. Am I hungry? Do this in training first, right? Don't go and suddenly roll this out on race day. Do it in training and experiment. Am I hungry? If the answer is yes, you eat, drink. If the answer is no, okay, I'm going to check in again in 10 minutes. Alright? 10 minutes rolls around, ask the question again. You repeat this process until you hit, I'm hungry, whenever that may be. Then when you hit it, you reset. You're now back to your normal interval, whether it's 20 minutes, 40 minutes, or whatever.
But sometimes, like you eat, but sometimes I have like, I don't think I'm hungry, and then eat them and realise that I'm actually really hungry. I start eating and think, oh, I should have eaten a bit sooner.
No, that's great, because you will, as you feel that, what you can do is you might do that and think, oh, I'm hungry. And suddenly you've got, say, 3 intervals of eating that you need to catch up on. All you need to do then is eat like a little bit every 5 minutes. It will get you back on track. But as you extend and practice with this, you get to a point where you might sometimes go 3-4 hours on nothing. And other times you might be eating every 10 or 15 minutes. But the point is you're now doing it in response to your body's natural desire and request for food, which is what's basically kept us all alive for millions and millions of years. It's a pretty good instinct, we just don't listen to it very much anymore.
It's really interesting, because you were saying that when you race, you eat like every 20 minutes. But yet, when I've been out on a club ride, we're all having food, and you're like, yeah, I'm not hungry, and you never eat anything. Which is like, it's just really interesting that you think when you're on a race.
Well, that's an intensity thing, I think. I mean, I know that to get through it, and this I'm really from my Ironman distance, so 12-hour stuff, that I know that, well, I've been led to believe that I will start going under the level of fueling myself and risk bonking if I don't. I mean, I can't say I've ever felt hungry. I would be surprised if that was a feeling that I felt. But maybe you're right. I mean, I've never really tried it, like you say.
This is exactly the same thing that I went through, because my understanding was always that you have to eat proactively so that you don't hit the wall and lose and bonk, and then if you're doing a race, it's game over. It's too late. You never recover from that. And I mean, you can talk a bit about sugar and bonking and things like that, and versus slowly like realising you're hungry. But this is where I found this checking in thing to work really well for me, because I used to buy lots of stuff off Wiggle and get little Haribos, and I used to take multiple bags of them out and just eat them every 20 minutes on my Sunday morning bike ride, just so that I didn't actually get hungry. And what I found is just doing this checking in thing, waiting 4 or 5 minutes, not hungry. I've had fueled before I set off on the race, I've had a nice breakfast. And then I'd go 3.5 hours now without eating anything at all. I get back, I'm not even hungry when I get back. And it's just really different way of looking at how you fuel it for me in races. So, I mean, the point for me is just try it in training. And it's really weird if you do, go 3 hours or something in training without having anything. But then, would it be 20 minutes into your cycle on an Ironman that you'd start fueling straight away? Or would you give it a portion of time first?
Yeah, no, because you've already done an hour's swim by then, so in theory according to the traditional view, you're starting to get into the zone where you need to be taking stuff on. I mean, I'm not saying I feel I need to, but I'm being told that I should do. So.
Well, I think it's definitely one to... Sorry, miles away.
Well, have you finished your point to that? Or I'll wait until you finish.
Okay.
Finish.
It's one to test in training and to see how you feel, because you might find that on day one, or on one day on a ride, you need 4 gels and a bar over 100 miles a day. And by bringing this strategy in piece by piece, you're able to go with that flow. Therefore, as you fine tune it in training, you're never over and you're never under. And worst case, you might get it wrong a couple of times in training, but a bit like, I don't know, no one ever got fast racing a car without sticking the old one in the tyre ball. You're going to have to do that occasionally.
Isn't it like, mentally, isn't it not really easy on a race day to become susceptible to just doing it every time you sits. Like in a marathon, for example, like you know how they have like the stands of people handing out water and gels like every 4-6 miles. Like you may practice it with tons and training, like checking in and doing it this way, but it might just be instinct. You do not think like people like instantly just say, yeah, I'm going to, because all the people in front of me doing it, I might as well go for it, because you see those gels, you see the water, and you're like, yeah, I like just need this because other people are doing it. Like, is it? Would you say that's like quite common? Like,
it's very common, and what this will give you is a little bit of smugness, because coming up to that table, getting something, unpacking it, getting it in your pocket, whatever it is, there's a good 5 or 10 seconds there. So on the time when you're like, not hungry, 5-10 seconds, see you later. That's free time you just got, nice little bit of smugness, and on the times you need it, it's there. But there is an awful lot of this that is built around everyone's doing it, therefore I should. Let's face it, when the world of professional sport is all doing the same thing because everyone else is doing it, yeah, it's a big jump to do this, and that's what your training's for. You know, you will find over the training with it that you can play around this as much as you like. And then on race day, it's up to you how you want to use it, how you want to do it. And if you feel like, yeah, I don't want to use it, I want to stick to what I know, go for it, because this is where we can all experiment and do our own thing. And the only aim is getting better. Yeah, so you would extend and contract the intervals as required. Like I say, if you're eating every 5 minutes, it's fine. If you realise you've got behind the curve, just don't try and make up 4 lots in one go, because that's not going to help anywhere. Just give yourself a beat. You will feel very hungry. You could eat 4 lots at once. 20 minutes later, that's not going to be a great situation. So just spreading it out. You know, okay, I'll have a quarter of it now. I'll have a bit in 5 minutes, a bit in 5 minutes. Getting rid of stomach trouble and gaining mental strength. Because this is what Mark was referring to earlier, I think, with the sugar spike and the sugar crash. On a traditional high carbohydrate gel bar powder fueling strategy, you're getting a spike of energy, but it doesn't last. It's like trying to keep a fire going with matches. Your mental state will track your energy state. We all know that endurance is a mental game. Therefore, the more your energy is doing this, the more your mood is doing this. By increasing the fat burning, changing some of the sort of fueling sources, using a bit of checking in, you can smooth that curve out. And something we've had feedback from athletes and customers from elite level right the way through to the rest is that they felt happier. Because suddenly this mental battle never got easy. Like, the sport's not meant to be easy if you're going to push yourself, but there was 20% extra bandwidth that just came from not riding a mental roller coaster. So that's something that can come from this. How are we going to get rid of stomach trouble? We're going to hydrate. It's going to be like oil in a car, okay? So just keeping a good amount of fluid coming in keeps the body digesting and flowing more naturally. Whole food fuel sources, wherever possible, try and incorporate those, whether that's swapping 1 gel in 3 for a banana, whether it's using some of our stuff, whether it's using water in your drinks bottle and I say a banana instead of 2 energy drinks, or whatever it is. If you can incorporate some whole food stuff throughout your training, it's the stuff your body recognises and has done for millions of years as food. The powders and the gels and stuff are quite a long way removed from that and can be a significant contributor to issues with stomach trouble. You're going to use your check-in strategy. You're going to eat when you're hungry, drink when you are thirsty. Timing of breakfast, like we were talking about earlier. Obviously, don't have a full English right before you start, and don't have nothing right before you start, because then you'll spend the whole race wanting the full English. You know, again, through training, you'll know roughly how long it takes you. Most people are between 1 and 2 hours gap from breakfast to race start. And that's the point. By getting these things out of the way, by removing a lot of the stomach trouble issues, by using the whole food sources where you can, by using the check-in strategy, by building the fat adaptation, we've got more stable mental energy. And you're back to the kittens again. You have done very, very well for a Friday night. Have you seen how happy they are I've got through?
You want us to eat kittens?
They are so good. Let's get the hair off and get them on the barbecue. They're brilliant. Ultimate slow release energy. Okay, protein.
Sorry, Warren, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because you talked there about reducing those stomach problems. And I think one thing that's prevalent in endurance sport is that you almost have to find the gel that's right for you, because some of them will give you stomach problems and some won't, or you've got to find the right one. But I mean, it's just, that is crazy. It's like you said before, it's almost accepted in endurance sport that you're going to get stomach trouble. And you know, I put on the post that, you know, I've seen quite a few people dashing off into the bushes and having a poo in the middle of races. Chrissy Wellington mentioned that she did in the video as well.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen people being sick and stuff like that, and you know, maybe that is the bad stuff that's in those sports nutrition that's causing that. And you know, that we don't have to really accept that as athletes. We're trying to be our best performance, but we're eating crap at the same time as we're doing it.
I mean, it's like, you're quite right. Like, it's something that Chrissy said. It's so, you know, stomach trouble is not normal. It's not natural. It's not a part of sport. But it is an accepted part of our sport, which is just so weird. There's nowhere else we would accept it. And the idea as well that with the majority of gel bars and drinks that you can find the one that works from you. If you read the ingredients labels, I challenge you to find any that are actually different apart from the colour of the packet. So, you know, what happened for the one that worked was most likely, again, we'll go back to Sherlock Holmes, what's the likely answer, because that's the only one we're left with, most likely just happened to be a good day, not a better product, because they're basically the same. On the protein subject, people can get very deep into the numbers of protein here. So here we go, this is what's accepted. 1 gram per kilo of body weight is generally what we're recommended to be consuming in terms of protein. So let's do some maths. The average UK male, he weighs 84 kilograms. The average UK male is already eating 90 grams of protein a day. You do not need to worry about getting a standard protein intake. Bear in mind, Mr. Average here is not thinking about his diet. He is probably spending 3 nights a week in the pub. He's certainly eating plenty of takeaways. He's not looking specifically to eat protein, yet he's easily exceeding his daily amount. So, hitting a regular amount of protein, just not an issue. 2 grams of protein per kilo is a pretty good rule of thumb under times of heavy training and racing. This is where you may want to be more conscious of a protein intake. You ideally want to be taking 20 grams of protein in a serving. There are studies that will tell you you can take 30. My suspicion is that those studies are potentially from people who like to sell you protein. 20 grams is a really good rule of thumb. Above that, it's not going to do you any harm, but it's not going to do you any good either. It's just going to come out as quite expensive wheat. So 20 grams a serving. The protein window, anyone heard this idea that you have to have protein within an hour after exercise? Yeah. Okay. It's exaggerated. It's as well, that window is more real than the protein window. The body's ability to get an increased benefit and to absorb protein more easily after exercise lasts up to 24 hours. So there's no rush, right? The point is, be conscious under training that you may need a bit more. And bear in mind, I'll send you copies of these slides. So what are your best protein sources? Real whole foods. Funnily enough, protein is in everything. The cow, the steak, the milk, the cheese, they contain protein because the cow ate grass. It's actually second hand by the time it gets into the cow, the milk, the cheese, third hand milk and cheese. So yeah, kale, 4% protein, rice 8%, bananas 1%. It's in everything. You don't specifically have to go and eat a turkey breast. Oats, 17%, nuts and seeds between 15 and 25%, beans, legumes, chickpeas and all that lot 10 to 20%, seaweed up to 60%. I mean, no one's going to eat 5 kilos of spirulina, but if you did, it's got 3 times the protein in it as steak. And if anyone does that, I will give them a medal. Eggs, 12.5%, meat and fish, 20 to 30%, and plant protein powders. In all of our research, the animal protein powders simply have a bit of an issue. They've come from a low-grade source. We'll have a little bit on this later. The animals, I say, they're often quite antibiotics, they're kept in unsanitary conditions. There's an increased amount of acidity that's going to come from an increased consumption of dairy. That's your whey protein. If you get a plant protein powder, a good one, and also a lot of them, even the plant ones, are sweetened with crap. We're talking maltodextrin, fructose, sucralose. Get one, you know, bit of sugar, bit of flavouring in it, whatever. A quality plant protein powder that's going to give you all the amino acids you need. That's as good as you can get. But that should come after your food. That's an easy, quick way to do it after training, right? But all of those come above your powders. And we sell powder, by the way. Worst protein sources, well, whey powder. Used to be, companies used to have to pay to get rid of it because it pollutes the waterways. Then they started feeding it to cattle. Then someone wrote a study saying it builds muscle, and they've been selling it to bodybuilders by the ton ever since. Powders with multiple processed additives, those are the ones I mentioned earlier. You may get a benefit from your plant or your whey or whatever protein is in there, but if that benefit is then offset by the same sweeteners and things that we were looking at earlier, fine. If you're aware of that and you're happy with that, great, but you're getting less out of your protein when it has those ingredients in it. Processed meat, that's your salamis, sausages, all of that lot. Tasty though they may be. When the World Health Organization are ranking them alongside asbestos and cigarettes as a cancer risk, I think non-organic animal sources. This is not about being some hipster or spending a crazy amount of money on organic food for the sake of being trendy. Your non-organic animal sources of protein have had a lot of additives in them. They have had the poor conditions that they've been brought up in. Ironically, they are the best for the environment per pound of product produced because they're done in such crowded conditions. But the end quality of the product you're getting, less good. Therefore, if you're going for meat and fish, go for a lesser amount of it, but go for a higher quality if you can. It will give you a better result. Age-related sarcopenia. This should almost be a moment for the kittens. This is the idea that over the age of 40, we're all turning to jelly. We must eat 500 tons of protein, otherwise we're never going to have any muscle and the big boys will kick sand in our face. It's sort of true, right, that we do lose muscle mass over the age of 40. But that's based on an average population study. And the average person aged 40 hasn't done any exercise since they were 20. If you don't do any exercise since you're 20, you won't have any, your muscle will be on its way out at 40. So you can prove that muscle mass loss and 40 are kind of correlated. Also, putting my cynical hat on, if you were a protein company looking to sell more protein, then middle-aged crisis blokes are the great market to expand into after athletes, and they will do anything easy. But this is just one of my favourite slides. If I get this highlighted to work, doesn't it? On the left, no, sorry, my highlighter's gone. So this is a cross-section. Imagine if I cut my leg off here and I put the foot on the floor, and we're now all looking at the top of the leg with the bone going through the centre there. Our young, active 23-year-old on the left has plenty of muscle, very little fat. Our untrained 82-year-old has very little muscle and quite a lot of fat. So if we just look at that picture, the older you get, the more you lose muscle. Here's a 74-year-old cyclist. You'll see his muscle mass is almost identical to our 23-year-old active adult. So he hasn't lost anything at all. Use it or lose it. Okay? Doesn't mean you don't need protein, but what it does mean is that muscle mass loss over the age of 40 is not actually a thing unless you want it to be. And here's a 91-year-old cross-country skier. Same volume of muscle. You will see it's a little more marbled. That's probably tastier as a steak. More fat in there to get it going. Now, size and strength gains become very limited over the age of 80. So this guy needs to keep it to become this guy. He's not going to build much more than this, but he doesn't have to lose anything either. So that was just a little diversion. The protein market's gone nuts at the moment. It's force feeding it to everyone in everything. It's the latest wonder product. There you go. Oh, brilliant. The highlighters are working. Perfect timing. Right. That concludes the nutrition side of things. Anyone come across the Sufferfest?
That's where you got the kittens from, isn't it?
I did actually. And the hamster on the wheel.
Yeah.
No, never heard of it. Just never seen it. Anyone else? It's an indoor training app.
Yeah, Tracy used it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone wanted to try it, we're doing a partnership with them at the moment. It struck me that it may be useful for you guys. You can try it absolutely free. You don't even need to put in a credit card or anything. It's not like if you don't cancel it at the end of the trial, they keep taking money out of your account. 30 days, try it for free instead of the standard 7-day trial they use. The code is SUFSHAKE30. We've simply loved it in our own training, and that's why we're partnering with them. So thought you might like that. 33 Shake. We make some stuff. I've been talking for quite long enough. It's on the flyers in front of you. Our stuff's awesome. It's much better than anyone else's. If you wanted any sports nutrition, you should probably try ours. You're an experimental one. If it doesn't work, well, we'll give you your money back. That's, I think, yes, that's some stuff we make, but really, I've been talking quite enough. So, what about you guys? Questions, things like that. Where would you like to go next? Apart from home.
Well, I have a question on your gels, if you don't mind.
Yes, no, go for it.
I haven't tried them. I'm sure they obviously it's all about natural products and stuff like that. I noticed that, trying the right way, the calories are pretty much equivalent to other gels as well.
Yes, the calories are the same.
Carbs are much lower.
Much.
Is that an issue? I mean, what's the reasoning behind that?
So the difference with, and it's a very good spot there, our gels have got a lot less carbohydrate in them, but they have a lot more nutrient density in them. They contain fat, they contain protein. There's only 4 ingredients. It's chia seeds, coconut, palm sugar, Himalayan pink salt, and organic vanilla.
And if you want to see them, just
Ooh,
put your
well
hand
remembered. Put your hands under your chairs now.
Your chair.
Behind the
Seriously, if you put your hands under your chairs.
Behind.
That's it.
Oh!
There you go.
See, if I hadn't asked that question,
If you hadn't, I'd have forgotten they were there. I was thinking about the
You were planned to be a part of it.
And what I would say with that in terms of the carb profile, they go against what every other gel company will tell you. The only thing we can say is go out and try it.
Yeah.
And we have, I mean, it's our biggest selling volume product. It's probably one people can understand the most readily. And we've only had very, very good reports back on it.
I mean, the boss calories is what we really want, isn't it?
The calories are there, the nutrients are there as well. You've got protein, you've got fats in there, you've got carbohydrate as well, and there is a little sort of part of the whole fat burning thing. This will disrupt your fat burning less while also giving you a gentle supply of carbs to keep that tank topped up. And also because it's just 4 straight natural ingredients that the body recognises, no stomach trouble.
Yeah.